Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle from Living Extraordinary podcast and YouTube channel. Join us for today's episode as co-host Nikki speaks with zero waster Lucile. Lucile's going to tell us ways to get started. Of course, she'll talk about what zero waste is and how even small changes can make a huge impact. Lucile also talks about the challenges she faced and how she overcame them. And you definitely do not want to miss Nikki talking about her experience at a recycling plant, and they even talk about eco-building and compare it to conventional building methods. So we've got a lot planned for this episode. Stick around. Don't forget to subscribe and click like if you're watching us on YouTube. Thanks. Take it away, Nikki.
Okay. Hello, Lucile.
Hi, Nikki.
Okay, so let's talk about how we met. Okay, so last year we did, it was like over a year ago. It's like last October we did the Earthship
Academy,
yes, the Earthship Biotecture Academy in Taos, New Mexico. And there was like, I don't know, like 20 of us or something, and me and Lucile were put in a group together. And one of our members left, so there was only like 4 of us, and it was cool. And so we had the whole month together. And like, anyway, we were like every day had to work together for like a month, and I didn't even know you were a zero waster. I was just like, she was like, she's from France, which she'll tell. And so like, she would say like, oh, I'm woofing. And I'd be like, God, just to go roof this place.
She builds roof every day.
I was like, she builds a roof every day after we're already doing this building. So like, wow, that's intense. Like, yeah. So tell them what that was, woofing or.
Okay, so that was actually woofing, not roofing, which I don't know if I pronounced right, but anyway. I was staying at Jeff's farm, which is an organic farm, and woofing is basically you stay in a farm and they host you for free and feed you, and you give like, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours of your day helping the person who runs the farm to, I don't know, pick up some vegetables, plant some stuff, just basically garden, and then you're hosted and you have food in exchange of that. So that's pretty cool.
And you were always bringing your own food, and you were like, it's from the
yeah I was always
place. I was like, wow, this roofing place is really nice.
yeah because then you have really good food because it all comes from the farm, and it's, I don't know, I was having fun cooking because I had time for that, and it was fresh, and I don't know, I'm always kind of happy with food that comes from what you did. Like, I don't know, you worked for it and you made it happen, and there you have food. It's always kind of rewarding.
It's just like you did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about tell us what zero waste is and how you got into it.
Okay. So zero waste is basically just trying to reduce your waste. So we have a lot of things to put in the bin every day, and it's possible to have less stuff to put in the bin at the end of the day, and at the end of the week, and at the end of the month, and then at the end of the year. And it's pretty cool to reduce it that way, because it's like kind of a game. It's kind of fun, and it's a good game because then you make an effort towards the planet.
Did you just jump right in, like when you first decided to do it?
Kind of. Yeah, but it takes some time because you have to like change your habits and into new habits that are like better habits, I guess. And this takes time because it's not like, oh, suddenly I do my shopping differently. It's just like step by step you reduce your bin, and then by analyzing what's left in your bin, you're like, oh, okay, this can also be removed or avoided. Like, I can find a solution for that not to be trash. So I kind of jumped right in because I discovered the book from Bea Johnson. She's actually French, but she lives in the States, and she wrote a book called Zero Waste. She's kind of like the mother of zero waste or whatever.
How do you spell her name? Bea Johnson?
So Bea Johnson, like Johnson.
Oh, like Bea Johnson. Okay.
Yeah, and and yeah, her book was pretty cool. And one of my friends told me about her book because I was in school. I was always like trying to work with recycled materials and everything because I I study space design, and design has a lot of issues with using materials for a short amount of time for an event or stuff like that, and then it all goes to the bin. So I was always working with reused materials or recycled materials. And one of my friends said, hey, do you know about this person, Bea Johnson? I was like, no. So I bought the book, read the book, and then jumped right into it, like, okay, I'm gonna have new habits because this is too important. And I felt like it could be it had like multiple advantages.
Yeah.
Like it, yeah. Okay. So first, you don't spend time in emptying your trash, which does take time because you just don't have trash anymore, or less, so you do it less often. Then your grocery shopping is less expensive because you don't pay for the containers, because you bring your own containers when you go shopping. And then you have better food because you don't buy food that is already
processed.
Processed. Yeah. Because I don't know, because this has weights because it has wrappers and stuff like that. And then also in your bathroom, for example, you use better soap, so it's better for your skin because you only use bars of soap. You don't use liquid soaps, because if you look at the composition of liquid soaps, it has
the ingredients and stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So I mean, it had so many advantages that I just said, like, okay, I'll just try.
Okay, so like walk us through all of that. Okay, how do you grocery shop? Like what do you eat?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Okay, so to go zero waste, well, actually, I have to make something clear before I go into that, but Bea Johnson calls it zero waste. And then there's another French family who wrote about zero waste and everything, and they call it the almost zero waste. And they're kind of right, because like nowadays it's kind of hard to have zero waste. Like,
right.
You know, you'll always have something that you don't really know what to do with. And I'm more like try to do my best, but not aiming at the zero. Like, it doesn't exist, and it makes you feel frustrated, you know. So zero waste is something you don't have to feel frustrated about. Like, you can try and do your best, but don't make it like, don't give you a hard time on doing it. You know what I mean? Okay.
I basically stopped chewing gum after meeting you because I was like, oh my god, it's like a wrapper within a wrapper that's already wrapped with it.
Yeah.
Like when you have a thing for like 30 minutes that you're chewing on, that came from like 18 different packaging supplies. And I'm like, oh.
And it's not even really good for your health. Right?
Gum chewing. Yeah, I guess like puts air in your stomach or something. I just loved gum. I kept on thinking it was gonna make your jawline better. I don't know.
All right. Okay, so I started doing zero waste by looking what was in my trash bag and saying, like, okay, what can I avoid and what can I avoid easily, so that I start off with something that's easy and then go to the hardest point, so that if you start easy, you see the difference quicker, and then it's encouraging you to go further in doing this. So I started with the kitchen, saying like, okay, kitchen, it's super easy. You can just bring your own containers when you go shopping, and you can buy a lot of bulk food. I don't know how you pronounce that. It's spelled BULK, I guess. Bulk food.
Bulk. Yeah.
Okay, that. So I go grocery shopping and buy bulk food only, and I bring my fabric bags and I fill them up, and then when I go back home, I just pour them into jars to store them. So I have some there just to show you, because it's maybe easier, but basically I go with a bag full of this kind of
other little bags that go
bags. Yeah. And those I have like different size. This is the big size, but I have smaller ones, and I just fill them up. And then I have a second bag, which I put everything in it. And then when I have everything, I just go back home, fill my jars, and then it's done. So that's the easiest part where you can start, because then you avoid
like plastic. I don't even know if we have bulk stores.
You actually do. That was like what I was worried with when I came to the States, because I was already doing the zero waste thing, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna travel. This is gonna be harder because I have my habits.
I know, like Aldi If you go
Yeah,
to
and
Aldi has some, and then there's
yeah,
like
and
some
Smith.
health food stores will have like bins of like grains and stuff that you can.
Yeah, mm. And Smith also has
Oh
bulk
yeah,
food.
Smith and
Yeah,
okay.
when we were in Taos, that's where I was going, and there was a lot of bulk food. And you can go to the farmers market because farmers market is just
Are everywhere. Yeah.
vegetables. They're everywhere, and you just put the vegetables directly in your bags. You don't need any plastic bags or
So
anything.
like if you were gonna buy like honey or something, would you just be okay with like a glass container? Like would you
Yeah,
try to
so
buy glass versus plastic or
yeah, exactly. That's also the thing. Like if there's something that you can't find bulk, and honey, you can find it bulk in France. It's super easy. But in Lyon, zero waste is a really easy thing. I guess like in other places it wouldn't be that easy. That easy.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of lucky with that. But honey, if you don't find it bulk, you can just be okay with buying a jar because it's glass. What's really bad is plastic because most plastics are not recycled, and that's what's bad because then we have to bury our trash or burn it, and that's what's bad for the planet. If you can't find for any kind of food, if you can avoid plastic, it's good. So the other kind of thing that you can have is cardboard or paper. That's a little better. And what's even better is glass because glass is recyclable infinitely,
right,
and
right.
even though it costs a lot of energy to recycle glass, you can still reuse your glass several times. And paper, you can't really, like, paper is very easily ripped or something like that. But
Right.
glass,
At least it decomposes well versus like plastic, which like hard I mean it never
yeah,
decomposes or for it takes
yeah.
forever to at least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
Um
if you find stuff in paper, you can always like try to find the paper that is not that doesn't have ink, that hasn't been printed. If it's brown paper, you can compost it. So
oh
that's
right.
also
Right.
zero waste because if you can compost something, it's zero waste. It's not a
And now
waste.
do you do compost? Do you compost
Yeah,
yourself?
yeah. So there's many solutions to compost. When you do zero waste, it's either you have a garden and that's super easy. You just make a pile, turn it over in the middle of the year, and there you have compost. If you don't have a garden because you live in the city, you can have public compost, which I go to. There's like a little nonprofit organization, and they have several public compost around Lyon. I think it also exists in Paris and in other cities all over France.
Yeah, I remember when I lived in London they had like these
Yeah,
almost like community gardens that you could buy into.
yeah,
You
exactly.
know,
Yeah. And you
I don't
sign up for it and you just go there and dump your compost. But you can also have a compost like right into your apartment. Um, One of them is called worm compost and it has like those little worms in it.
oh
And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and you just eat your food and then juice comes out of it and you can feed your plant with the juice. It's really good for plants. But this needs a little bit of care. Like you can't really put onions in it. You can't put oranges.
Oh
You need
really?
to like,
Is that
yeah.
just from trial and error or did you like research all that?
I researched on it because I had one last year. I experimented it and it was kind of cool to experiment, but also I thought kind of a little bit of job. And
Right.
then at some point, I don't know, also because if I had a stable situation, like I know that I'm staying in this apartment and everything, I could get like a big worm compost, put it in the basement. It would be always the correct temperature and everything. But now that I'm a student, I only have like small flats and I don't have space for it. And it's not the right temperature because whenever I leave, it's too cold. And whenever I'm there, it's too warm for them. And also like my food wasn't healthy all the time. So sometimes for example, one time I drank too much coffee and I gave them coffee ground, but there was too much coffee ground for them. So they tried to escape from the compost because they were like, oh, I don't like
Oh
this coffee. So
no.
yeah, I had
Yeah.
like some worms on my kitchen floor, which wasn't really nice, but I mean, it happens.
Okay.
Um, but there's also like this very practical electric compost that you can get. So it's like a box and you plug it in. You put your, I don't know how it works. I don't have one, but I saw it in the internet. You just put your compostable waste in it, plug it in, put it on, and then it like composts it.
Okay, so I felt super guilty like this because like Christmas is coming up. So I got my mom a
Yeah.
she wanted a weighted blanket and it was like this eco bamboo cotton weighted blanket, and it came within a plastic thing, which was in a bubble wrap thing, which was in a giant bag, which was in another giant box, and I was just like going like, like I bought a blanket and then killed 8 trees in the process of doing it. I mean like it's hard ordering online too. Like I just noticed like everything. It's like I have 6 nieces and nephews, and I bought them all like little toys or something, and it was like, whoa. I feel like even if you like, let's say you went to a store and just bought the toy, the store still got their toy in all that packaging.
Right. Yeah. So, well, first it's better to try to not buy online, because then there won't be like the cost of transportation of the toy that you buy. Try to avoid like plastic toys. I don't know, for example, your blanket, it wouldn't have been wrapped individually if you got it from the store. It would have been wrapped with other blankets.
Like a bulk blanket.
Yeah, exactly. So that's still less trash, even though it's still trash. And then like what I would rather do is buy stuff that is secondhand. I know like people aren't really ready for it yet. Like if you would have got like a secondhand blanket for your mom, maybe she would have been like, hey, what is this? Like, you couldn't get me a proper blanket, right? So people are still kind of like this, but for some stuff it's really cool. Like these headphones are secondhand, and they're like, they look kind of new. They're like less duration headphones, and you know, if I would have give that as a Christmas present to someone, maybe the person wouldn't even notice that it wasn't new. And it's good for the environment, because there's like the secondhand market is like super huge, and people put a lot of stuff in the trash. If this guy wouldn't have sold it, maybe in 2 years it would have been in the bin, because, you know, it's stored in his place. He wants room. He doesn't want to store stuff that he doesn't use and stuff like that.
And where do you get secondhand stuff? Do you go to thrift stores, or do you just do anything?
Yeah, I like to go to thrift stores for my clothes, because then you can try it on and see if it works. There's also this really cool website called Vinted. I don't know if you have that in the States.
I don't know. Yeah, I can look it up.
Okay.
Vinted.
Well, we have that in France, and it's like you put your clothes online and people buy it off you, or the other way around. But this also has a problem, because people have to wrap it and send it to you. So that's what I prefer to go. Yeah, another box, another plastic, another paper.
Okay, so what about like girl like moisturizer and sunscreen and like mascara?
Yeah. Okay, so I don't wear makeup, so I don't have this problem.
Okay, well,
but you can make your makeup yourself. Like I've read some stuff about it, and Bea Johnson wrote a lot about it. It's supposed to be easy and fast. I trust her, but I never tried because I don't wear makeup. But like for moisturizing and stuff like that, I use shea butter, which isn't bulk. Like I buy it and it's in a plastic box, but it's like it's a pretty big quantity in just one plastic box, and then, you know, it lasts for ages. And you can also use like coconut oil, which comes in jars, so that's glass, so that's better. I don't know, for soaps I just buy bulk bar soaps, and for shampoo I also buy those blocks of shampoos that you can find bulk as well.
Oh, like a bar shampoo?
Yeah. And you just like wet it and make foam with it, and then
nice. I've seen that at Lush, but
yeah, they have it at Lush. Yeah,
exactly. At Lush. And what about what is it like? You don't even wear sunscreen.
No, I don't wear a lot of sunscreen either, but I know that coconut oil is kind of a sunscreen in a way. I know with your skin you would need a lot of coconut oil to protect
I know.
it.
I'm like as white as a ghost, and I was like like we were in New Mexico, like Lucile was like
with your hat,
like nothing, and I'm like look like I'm like, you know, going.
Yeah, I was also in New Mexico a month before you came, so I had time to get some sun on my skin. But yeah, I'm lucky with that. I don't need a lot of sunscreen, but I know coconut oil does the trick. And then maybe protect yourself with clothes. That's what you already did. And I'm sure you can find, like, for example, Lush. You can go to Lush and they fill your little containers, and then you go home with it. So you can bring back the container and they refill it, you know. So I think Lush can have some bulk stuff.
Yeah, you should start a YouTube about zero waste. Like there's this, like I watched online who's a zero waster girl who's about your age who will be like, this is how I make my moisturizer.
That's
like,
cool.
Shea butter and coconut butter. And then like she like melts them together and puts cocoa butter in it and then like whips it.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to do that at some point, but I was like, there's already like a lot of it on the internet. Like if you go online, you can find a shit ton of stuff. So I was like,
yeah, it's true. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, like I'm sure, but you know, like you never know like how people are exposed to things. Cause like you're the first person I ever met who was like a zero waster. But then after I met you, me and Amy, when we went to India, we visited the Sadhana Forest, and that place, like, you would love that place.
Yeah, I know. We
like,
talked about
I was
it.
like, Lucile has to go here. It's like all zero waste. Like they don't even use toilet paper.
I'm trying to do that right now. That's my hard part, I guess.
I was kind of like, when I had to go to the bathroom, I was like, I mean, they had, you know, the just the hose. Like you have the hose. That's all you got. Yeah. And I was just like, but
toilet paper is a really like northern country, like developed country thing. Like the rest of the world doesn't use toilet paper. Why do we use toilet paper? You know, and it's also a problem. Like it kind of hurts your ass in a way.
Yeah, I guess it kind of does. Yeah.
Yeah. When you start using water, you realize like, wow, this feels so much better. Like it's comfortable, it's clean. I mean, why not? You know. It's just hard. I find it just hard in the winter because, you know, the water is stored in your bathroom and it's just cold. Like I don't have like a tap or anything. My bathroom isn't made for that. So I just like store it in a bottle but it gets cold. So it's like, I'd rather use toilet paper right now. I'm already too cold.
Right.
And then you have like, you know, you have to kind of change your habits, but it's always the same. But like you have to use a towel instead of toilet paper because once you have water on your ass, you just have to wipe the water. So you need a towel in your bathroom, clean it often. You know, it's possible, but it is. Yeah.
And I started doing like feminine products like for your period. It was like I remember like I was reading about how like the pads that people use and tampons and stuff, like how much waste there really is with all that.
Yeah.
And I started
it's also super bad for your health because tampons and pads are not all organic cottons, so they have pesticides in them and they just go in your body because they're in direct contact with your vagina or
inside you. Yeah, I mean, do you use the moon cup? Or
yeah, I have a cup, and when I don't really feel like wearing it, because sometimes it happens, I just wear reusable pads, and they're really comfortable and they're really nice.
Okay, see, I don't know any, like, what brand do you use of reusable pads?
I don't know what brand that is, because I bought them in a shop that is a zero waste shop, so they didn't have any labels for them, so I just
They have a zero waste shop?
I know, in Lyon we have like a ton of zero waste shop. It's crazy. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. It's very progressive. I have to say.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. And I mean, like, I have these panties that are called Thinks, like Thinx, and they're equivalent to like they feel like just like real thick underwear, but they're like a pad.
I heard about them. They're just like you put nothing in them, and
they put nothing in them, and I love them. Like I now I have those, and I don't use any kind of. I still sometimes I have a moon cup, but for me, it's like I only like it when I'm super heavy. Otherwise, it's uncomfortable. Like if my flow isn't very heavy, then it just isn't comfortable. So that's why I like the Thinks or whatever. But yeah, so that was an interesting transition that I went through this year, where I was like trying to like reduce that.
Nice.
I think for me, my main zero waste thing is it still is food. And because I'm a flight attendant, so I'm gone for 3 days, and I need to be better at preparing my food before I go, which I have been, but I tend to get a lot of like stuff that's in containers already, you know? And then in anytime I eat out, like eating out is like today, me and my sister went to a restaurant and they just brought I ordered a water, but I was just going to use the glass. So we went to La Madeleine, actually, which is like not really French, but it's supposed to be French. Like you would go in there and be like, yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Good, nice try. But anyway, we went in there and I don't know. I ordered a water and I thought I was just going to get the glass to get the water. And next thing I know, the lady puts like a plastic bottle or like, you know, like a plastic cup with a straw and a lid on my thing. And it's like, it's already poured. It's there. I'm like,
too late,
okay.
right? Yeah. But I found it harder when I was in the States to go eat out and have no waste, because in France, if you go to a restaurant, you get like a proper plate.
Cutlery.
And in the US, it's not really the case, and often you have like the sauce that are in little plastic containers and sugar and whatever. Like there's a lot of stuff on the table that is trash,
individually wrapped and stuff.
Yeah. And I think we have less of this in France. But also one thing that I think is that you don't have to feel like super guilty every time you have trash around you, because that can happen when you try to be zero waste. You're kind of like, oh my god, I just produced like a big amount of trash in this day, and what did I do, and blah blah blah. And it's like, hey, you do so much effort every day to reduce it. You're already doing good by doing this, you know, by trying.
Right.
So it's okay if like, oh, one day you went to the restaurant and you had a napkin and it was paper and it was trash. Oh, well, you know, who cares? It's fine.
Well, and then that is like the kind of thing where it's like, you're still consciously making an effort to reduce more.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you're conscious of it, that's already a start, and that's already better than not even knowing that you produce trash.
Okay, tell us the hummingbird story, because I like that.
Okay. So that's a story from a French philosopher. He's actually a philosopher and a farmer. And he's called Pierre Rabhi. And he tells this story about this forest. So there is a big fire in the forest, and all the animals are running out of the forest as fast as they can. Like the flames are going over the trees. It's crazy. Like their habitat is being destroyed. So they just run off for their lives. And then like as they run off this way, suddenly like a hummingbird comes back the other way towards the forest. And the rabbit goes like, hey man, what the hell are you doing in this direction? You know, just run off. There's the fire over there. And he actually has a drop of water in his beak and says it to the rabbit, and the rabbit's just like, oh, come on, it's not gonna, you know, put off the fire, it's not gonna do anything. And he's like, I know, but I do my part.
Right. And it is kind of interesting, because if we all became that hummingbird, he would make a big difference.
Yeah, we could all, like, if every animal of this story brought back some water, maybe they could stop the fire. And that's kind of what we can do when we do zero waste. Like if we all tried, we could make a difference, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure you also save a lot of money.
Yeah, because when you go grocery shopping, when you go grocery shopping, what you pay in the price of the things that you buy is the marketing and the container. So if you bring your own containers, you don't pay the packaging and the marketing. So that's already like some money saved. It's supposedly cheaper to do it that way. And as I said in the beginning, you stop buying like processed food and expensive soap that would make your hair better and everything. So you also buy cheaper stuff, and it's also kind of like a minimalism thing. Like you buy stuff that is more simple. And
I need to do that, but I have to tell you, I love my product. I love all my stuff, my things. I'm like, oh, a blue or brown eyeliner. I mean, like, yeah, you saw my stuff in Taos. I like, and I love my I don't know. I like makeup.
But you know, that's also fine if you know that in your kitchen you
that's true. But it's like
you know, it's like Yeah.
Even if
For
I
me,
have that guilt thing, that's cool. But at the same time, I like reduced my feminine waste stuff this year.
Yeah.
You know.
But you have to balance like what you do and what you don't. It's okay. Like you just, as long as you're conscious of it, we see again. Like we already said it, but it's already a
So,
start.
I remember you were telling me some interesting facts about like concrete. Like, because we were
Yeah.
using a ton of concrete with the earthships and with
Yeah.
the domes. We also went to Mexico and built domes.
Mm-mm.
And so what's the deal with the concrete?
Okay, so in the world, first fun fact, in the world, every minute there is the amount of an Olympic pool of concrete that's being poured. So that's just enormous, like every minute.
Like an Olympic swimming pool.
Yeah. So that's a lot of concrete, and the problem with concrete is that it needs so it has sand in it, and it's not sand from the desert because the sand from the desert has been rolled by the wind, so it's not good for the concrete for some reasons.
Right, it's not gritty enough.
Yeah, so it sands from the river and from the careers, like places where we just dig out some rocks.
Oh, quarries.
How do you call that? Yeah,
quarries. Yeah.
That. So it's sand from there. So we're just like, taking the resources from the earth, changing the shape of the earth by taking all this sand out, because when you take the sand out, it makes the water that is under, it makes the water come back on the surface, and so
right,
we create
so you get erosion in like really
human beings are creating like a lot of erosions and using the resources of the planet super fast, and once we built a building and then we realized like 5 years later, oh, actually this building is crap, let's tear it down. We can't really, like, concrete isn't we just tear it down, and it's
rubble.
It's kind of reused, but not really, in the roads, for example, and stuff like that. But it's not like, that's not a solution at all. So concrete is not really good. Like, I know some architects, like I've read some stuff about some architects using wood mostly for their construction, because wood can be like renewed, and that's like a better material in that way because it can be renewed.
Well, and what do you think about, like, I know cob is still sand, but is it the same kind of sand, or is it
wait, dirt? I have to look up what cob
it's like adobe.
How do you spell it?
Like just COB.
Wait,
it was kind of it's kind of like the adobe walls we did in Taos with like, like there's like a clay and a sand and straw mixed together.
And you say cob is not a really good solution?
No, I mean, I think it is a good solution.
Sorry, yeah, of course, yeah, because then you have the dirt, it's already on the work site. That's what I liked in Taos, is that they were just like, we're gonna make this adobe wall. Our ground is good to do the adobe. Let's just take it from there, shovel it, and there's not even any transportation cost and concrete has the transportation cost.
Yeah, for sure, like a big carbon footprint, like with that.
Yeah. So yeah, sometimes concrete, you have to use it. Like they do use it in earthship because they have to make it some elements structural.
Yeah, and really strong.
But if you can avoid it, then there's some.
Well, I mean, that's ultimately why, like, I didn't really like the aircrete stuff in the end.
Yeah.
It was like, it was. I mean, I actually liked learning how to build domes in general.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
The amount of concrete was, even though it was less than if you would have done a concrete dome, it still was a lot of concrete.
And I'm sorry, but also the washing product that they use to make the foam in the concrete to make aircrete.
Oh, right, like the detergent.
Yeah, I also don't think that at school for fishes and stuff, it's kind of like, hey, this is supposed to be ecological, and they use like, dishwashing.
You're like, well, we're using 7th generation, but you're like, okay, yeah, but.
Yeah, that's not that. Like if you read the ingredients in that stuff, it's
the same
good.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was good to learn how to build domes and to see that like anyone can build a shelter really easily because it's a light material, it's easy to make and everything. I kind of like this part, and to see that you can be like autonomous on that, that's cool.
Autonomous, yeah.
But yeah, but the concrete and the foam, I don't know, I'm not too sure about it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, okay, let's see. So like what else would you want people to know? Like what is there anything that was like surprising to you about going zero waste?
Yeah, something was and still is the relation that you can have to other people with that, because sometimes you just try your best but people just smash down your efforts. Like Christmas, for example, like Christmas is coming up and I'm just like, I'm gonna see my family, I'm really happy to see them and stuff, and there's also this thing in me saying like it's gonna be so fucking wasteful, like all those
Right.
chocolates that are individually wrapped and all those presents that are wrapped in plastics, and also even the present itself is going to be plastic and everything, and I'm just like, I don't want to consume too much, so I don't want to make, like, I don't want to give presents or receive presents, because I see no point. Like, you can, if there's a book that I like and I think you're gonna like it, I'm gonna give it to you anyway, any time of the year. I don't see why Christmas should be this thing where it has to be a present on this day. So this is already a problem. And then whenever I wrap my presents in newspaper or recycled paper, I think it's fun. It gives it a look and everything. And my family's just like, oh, come on, you could have made an effort on this. Like, for them, it looks ugly or it's kind of trashy, or it's
Right.
So that's kind of like the surprise or the hard part, because you think you're doing your best and your family's just like, oh, come on. Or like,
I know. I mean, when I went vegetarian, it was like at first it would be like, it was, I mean, people like, everybody criticizes it. They're like, why don't you eat meat, or why and then like, what about your protein, or what about the, I mean, and you're just kind of like, I mean, they've done zero research on it, but they're still criticize the way that you're doing your thing. And
it can actually make you tired of trying to, like,
explain.
as if you have to have arguments for it. Like, you're just doing it, it's good for you and for the environment, just do it, and don't like ask me questions about it. Or if you do ask me questions, don't ask them in a way that I feel like criticized or something. Just be curious about it, but don't blame me for not eating meat.
And I really liked that about you, though, was that like I didn't eat, like I knew you a month before I even, like, actually I didn't realize you were zero waste until we were driving in Mexico. It was like 2 months later when we were on a road trip from like Mexico City down to Mazunte, and I was like, what do you mean you're zero waste? What does that mean? Explain this. And I was like, whoa, that's fascinating. And then I was kind of like trying to go back and like think of all the times like I'd eaten with you, or like anytime I'd see you do anything, and I'd be like, what about this? And like that, you were just completely unassuming about it. And it's just like, I mean, like,
but I'm happy that you say that, because sometimes in my family it's more like I don't know, I try to talk about it just because I was curious about it and it's part of my life now. So sometimes I just talk about it naturally. It's like, whoa, and last weeks I did this and this and this, and I'm not trying to like make people do it or anything. I'm just like, that's my life. I like to talk about what happens, so I just say it. And some people in my family were telling me like, okay, stop giving us lessons, like we don't need to hear about that anymore. And I was just like, I'm sorry, I that's not what I mean. Like, everyone does its thing. I'm also vegetarian. I'm not trying to make the world become vegetarian. Like, it doesn't matter. It's just everyone does its part and everyone does what it wants to do. There's no obligations, but just like, that's what I do. Don't bother me with what I do.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I had to get like, it's like my siblings would be like, don't preach to us. Don't tell me. And I'd be like, I'm not, but you don't preach to me. You don't tell me like how, like, yeah. So, I mean, it's good though to have those conversations. So I think, cause it's like, you're not going to like, you probably don't have those as much with like the general public or like, but your family's always going to give you crap. They just do.
Right.
I think that's pretty normal. Yeah. So yeah, I could totally see that being like an issue, but still, I just don't think there's enough people who are, and do you have any particular, like ways you recycle stuff? Like, do you like make sure your plastic does go to a recycling place, or like what's your deal with that?
Yeah, so in France we have something called the yellow bin. So it's a bin that has a yellow lid, and it basically is supposed to receive all the recyclable trash. So a certain kind of plastic, which is mainly HDPE plastic, all cardboards, and some kind of paper. And then we also have like big containers around the city. So the yellow, sorry, I have to start from the beginning. The yellow bin is always next to the black bin, and the black bin is the normal trash. So for example, in my building, at the bottom of the building, there is a black bin and a yellow bin, and you're supposed to sort your trash. So you're supposed to put the recyclable stuff in the yellow bin and the trash in the black bin. And then trucks come and collect it, and they collect it separately. And then for glass and fabric, there are some big containers in the city, like on some public squares and stuff. And you just go and you have to take your trash over there, but it's like there's a lot of them, so you don't have to go really far. And you just sort your trash there. So you just put your glass in the glass thing, your fabric in the fabric thing. And I know in some cities, they don't, like in some small villages, for example, they don't have a yellow bin that comes, like the truck doesn't come to collect your recyclables, so you also have to go for that. As you go for glass and fabric, you also go for plastic, cardboard, and everything. So it depends from cities to cities, and it depends if you're in a big city or in the countryside, but there's always a way that the government organized the trash collecting, so it's kind of made easy for us to do it. But sometimes it can be hard. Like, for example, in my school, they don't sort trash at all.
Mm.
And 2 years ago, we created a nonprofit organization inside the school, made by students for students, that like collected materials to be reused in people's projects. Because I'm in an art school, so we need like plank of wood, or we need fabric to use for our projects. So we created that for that purpose. And through this, we were trying to make the school do the sorting out of trash. Yeah, but they didn't want to. Like we went several times to see the headmaster of the school, and we were like, hey, we really want to do this, we know that people are going to be interested in it and everything. And he was like, oh, it's too much trouble, it's too much money, it's people are not going to do it. And we were like, hey, we're the one coming to tell you that we're motivated, like why do you bring us down, you know? So right now in my school, it's super hard. Even if you come back from wherever with some cardboard, we use a lot of cardboard because I make small scale model or stuff like that. I can't even recycle my cardboard. I think it's really dumb, but you know, some places it's harder. But
well, did I send you that video of that precious plastics?
Yeah. Well, I actually already knew about it. It's people who recycle the HDPE. They cut it into pieces, like shred it, and then make new objects with it. Yeah, that's super cool.
I mean, I was thinking about, like, I still am thinking about, I would like to create some sort of like company that makes plastic bricks. I think that would be an interesting, and even if it's just for like retaining walls or something, because you don't want off-gassing necessarily, like if you're living inside of it. But anyway, that's besides the point. But like I started doing some research on recycling plants. So in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which is where I live, I went to a glass recycling plant, and it was like a big warehouse facility.
Okay.
So I go there, and like this is real funny. I said, I was like, oh, I'm doing my master's for the Earthship Biotech Academy, and like they don't know what that is, right? And I'm not doing a master's for crap. And I was just like, yes, I'm doing some research, and I would like to have a tour of the facility and see what it is I can find, you know, whatever. And so like I get there, and like it's like I gave myself an elementary school trip or something, you know. So I'm like there, and I'm going like, whoa, and what's that do? What's that do? First of all, like they only keep green, white, or clear glass, and brown glass. So if it's any other color of glass, like blue or just like if it's any other color glass, they get rid of it because there's not enough bulk of the other colors.
Yeah.
So like it just goes to a landfill. But anyway, so they have like these they have these bins where they like sort out, like they take anything like anything magnetic, they have a big magnet that sucks out any kind of metal, and then they put it through a couple of filters after they crush it or whatever, and then once they have a machine that literally picks out the colors as it's like falling down. It's kind of cool.
And it goes into the other part, onto the other belt.
But guess what it's reused for? The brown goes into making bottles for beer, so that's usually remade, and then the green goes into some other kind of bottling company. But the clear, they reuse it for insulation, so like inside.
So they
walls.
don't make glass with it again?
Mm-mm. They make it into little tiny
they shred it for, I know it's like wool, but it's like it's like
right.
fiber.
Yeah, they do that, and I'm kind of like, and that's super like, I don't know, that just doesn't seem like that. I always thought that kind of insulation was a little inefficient, and also
it's not safe for health, right?
Really unhealthy. Like if you touch it and it gets into you, it's like really bad. So I was kind of like, and he's like, well, we're not like what did he say? He was like, we're not we're for profit, and like this is like a business.
Oh shit.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, but like you're using a free material that people are giving you. He's like, yeah, but we provide the bins. We're the people who go and pick up the bins. Yeah. And I was just a little bit like disillusioned by the whole thing. I'm like, okay, so basically your recycled glass just becomes crappy insulation.
Yeah. But is it also because like it's a private company that takes care of it?
Yeah, maybe, but I guess all of the recycling in my area is private. We don't have a state or a city fund recycling thing.
Because I was thinking, I'm not sure. I'm not really like, I don't.
Well, the plastic places I tried to go to.
France, it's all like state funded.
It's all state funded. In the U.S., it's private, which is like, oh, maybe I should get into that then. But then I tried to go to the metal place. And I set up an appointment with them, and then I got to a place that does metal, but they only take like what was it? They only take like large, like recycled cars or like big pieces of, like they don't do like the soda, like they don't do aluminum cans or anything like that.
Okay.
Like so
aluminum cans are not recycled then, like at all?
Well, then, like, here's what the guy was explaining to me. He said that Japan and China used to take all of our trash and recycle it over there because, like, but then they stopped doing that. So now it's going to our landfills here, which is, like, really horrible. But, like, they don't recycle the metal because it has to be a certain, like, I don't know, like, there's a couple of Ronald McDonald places or some other stuff that say that they recycle aluminum, and maybe they do somewhere, but this particular place that I was talking to, that I went to, which was in actually Dallas, because like in the actual city, he was just saying that like it costs so much to heat the furnaces to actually get the metal remelted that they only waste their time on like the more like copper and like nickel and like steel and stuff like that, like you know, and they have to be able to test what kind of metal it is, and they don't want any, like they don't clean their metal. They don't, like, you know, like if like think about your soda cans or something, those would have to be rinsed out of I don't know, like, or I would think that would burn off. But anyway, all I'm saying is that if you really start getting into the recycling stuff, it's pretty pathetic and kind of sad. Like there's so much more they could be recycling than they are.
Yeah, but that's also why in zero waste, like a lot of people say it's good to, like the first step is to get more and more stuff that is recyclable. So like your waste becomes recyclable stuff in the first place instead of total trash. And then the second step is to reduce your amount of recyclable trash. So I don't know if that was clear
No,
enough.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. And then so like the more you get into the zero waste thing, the less recyclables you have as well, because you're trying to reduce that as well, because you know it has an energetic cost as well. So
Right.
yeah,
That's cool. Okay, so oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Okay, I also had like this conversation with Daniel because he was saying like, yeah, we're gonna try to make a bottle out of a plant that can make plastic. What's that again?
Right. Yeah, there are some kind of plastics that are
hemp, out of hemp. Yeah, I was looking for
out of hemp. Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, that's not such a good idea, because you're just encouraging people to have a plastic bottle and to be used to have a plastic bottle, instead of like making people used to having like a bottle like this that you can reuse every time, instead of like putting it into the trash. Like you have to change your habits, not to change the kind of waste that you have,
Right. Well, and it is interesting because it's like, I'm born in 82. You were not even a twinkle in your parents' eyes at that point. But like when I was little, I remember the first time I saw bottles of water. I think I was at the zoo or like some public thing like that, and they were selling bottles of water. And I remember going like, no, people aren't going to pay for water in a bottle. That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Water's free. You could just get it from a tap somewhere. And like, people thought like that. Like when I was like a kid, like people thought like they would just drink tap water all the time, and like they just like would get like reusable cups. It's like they didn't just go like red Solo cup. Yeah. I mean, now it's just like, hey, I drank out of that once, never again. I mean, it's almost like I feel like we've been commercialized, and this consumerism and materialization like world has been pushed on us like so hard, where it's like,
and also our hygienic side. I know I think our society is more hygienist, so like we need stuff that is only usable one time, because then it's dirty, like you can't reuse it. It's disgusting.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, that's also a part of the problem, I think. Like, for example, I was super disappointed. I went to see conferences for an entire day about the Anthropocene. Is that
the what?
The Anthropocene. Am I saying it correctly?
And is that like Anthropocene? Is that like kind of
okay? It's like the fact that we're going into a new
era,
geological era, because of mankind. So that's why it's called Anthropocene. I'm really bad
it's like the new era instead of like. I know exactly what you're talking about, but I'm also not that amazing at the only language I know. So.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I went to this. So mostly it was talking about ecological problems and earth issues and mankind issues and stuff like this. And every person that joined the conference was given a bottle of water, a plastic bottle of water, and a plastic glass to pour the water in the plastic glass to drink out of it. And I was just like, we're here all day to talk about, like, it was actually 2 days. We were all, like, for 2 days talking about the planet and stuff. And you guys are drinking from plastic bottles and plastic glass. Like, it makes no sense.
It doesn't.
Seriously.
But I do have to say, it is weird, because then it's like I get into, I'm like, well, what's in our water? They have fluoride in our water, all this stuff like that we don't need to have in our water. Like I know like Detroit, there's a city called Flint, which is close to Detroit. Has like, I don't know, like it's like, first of all, when I'm a flight attendant, when I go there, it literally like you turn on the faucet and it smells like rotten eggs. I'm like, like I'm not drinking that. And I mean, I know that they came out saying that there's like, I don't know if it's like they all have lead pipes, or I can't remember like what it is that makes their water so toxic, but there's like our drinking water in general is kind of, I think the scare about drinking water is led more and more to the And like, I'm cool with like spring water, like that's cool or whatever. But otherwise, if it's like purified, it's super purified. All that means is they just boiled your tap water. Like
Right.
literally, that's not like, it just means that they've purified it. By
Yeah, so do it yourself.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is all like a marketing hype to us, but I don't know. I don't know. But it's good. We're talking about stuff like this stuff. Things are gonna get better. It's gonna change.
Exactly.
So that's cool. So like, I guess like my last little question for you. Oh, actually 2 more things. I have 2 more things.
All right.
First of all, you talked a little bit about the stage design minimalism, but I like explain to them like, cause I really like the idea of how you were talking about how, you get into like a minimal thing where like, the actors are basically like using their talent rather than the thing that they have to show you.
Yeah. Okay, so that's really hard. So in my work, I try to like use as little as possible of materials, just because materials are precious. So if I use a material, it has to have like a particular meaning, or it has to like be very important for the piece or something. And if I can, I use materials that has already been used for something else. So that's called reusing. Yeah.
Are upcycled too.
Upcycling is more like when you, for example, Heineken, the brand of beer, was like manufacturing bottles that had the shape of a brick, so that once you finish drinking your beer, and if you have several beers, you can start building a house. So that's upcycling, because they thought of what the trash would become before even it was trash. You know, they thought of a second life.
Cool.
That's kind of cool. Upcycling is pretty cool, actually. Yeah, but it doesn't always work. But yeah, it's a good idea. But I try to reuse as much as possible something that has already been used. And I try to use secondhand too. But sometimes it's really hard. Like this year, I had a project. I had to make a set design for dancers, and so we didn't have a lot of time, and I got my materials really late, and they looked too new. They didn't look good on stage. They were like, it was a metal bar and it was way too shiny. So I had to make it look old. And you can say like, yeah, it's easy, just put it onto the rain and it's gonna rust. But I had like 2 days to do it,
right,
and
so
it can't rust in 2 days. Yeah, so I had, even worse than paint, I had to use acid, and yeah, and then fossil fuels, because I put the acid on the bar and then put water, and then I had to heat it so that it evaporated, and then it rust instantly, and it's pretty cool. Like the effect is like perfect, but it's just like super bad for the environment.
But you were like, oh God.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like, I'm sorry. But I kept doing it because the piece had to happen. So sometimes it's really hard because of time mostly, but if you anticipate it's possible to work as a designer, as a set designer, in a eco-friendly way.
So then also talk about your bike fetish thing, like how you you like, she goes around and finds old bikes and them awesome again, and then you're a bike rider, right?
Yeah. I don't ride bikes for sports. I just ride bikes to go
from as your transportation.
Yeah, exactly. But it's super easy in France to it depends from cities to cities, but in Lyon it's perfect. Like you have cycling roads everywhere and stuff like that. I still get knocked over by cars every now and then, but that's okay. But yeah, I started doing bikes because I was in Paris for my foundation year, and there was this bike on the street that was like super cute, and I was like, wow, this doesn't belong to anyone, like it's not attached, it's there for trash or something. And it was actually trash, but I was like, I'm gonna save it from the bin, ha ha ha. And I took it home and started like repairing it, but I didn't know anything about bikes, so I just like put it there and like I took it into pieces, but like in a very like I lost the word, in a very organized way. And I was like, okay,
So
I
you knew
took
where
this
it would
off.
go, right.
Yeah, I took this off first, so it goes there. I took this off second, and I was like really organizing myself. And I just like put it all apart and then put it back together, and replaced a few things that weren't working and everything. And that was kind of it. Like you can learn everything by just, you know, being organized and looking at things and be concentrated, focused, and know what you're doing. And then when I put it back together, I was like, wow, did I actually do that? Like, you know, and I went on the bike and it worked, and I was like, huh, that was easy, you know, like, okay. And so I started going to the recycling place in my hometown, and I started like, because I knew that people were throwing bikes away, and I was like, this can't happen. Like those bikes can be reused, and people can actually ride them. So I went there, and there was.
So would it be like things like their tires were bent, or
no, entire bikes? Like I was going there, and in those big containers, I was finding entire bikes, and I was like, huh? And so I went to ask the people that work there, hey, is this like an entire bike in there? And it was like, yeah, people actually do this. So they would like, they weren't allowed, but they would like pick it up for me out of the big container and take it aside and be like, hey, just don't tell anyone, but go home with it. So I started like collecting a few bikes like this. Some of them were like kind of trashy, so they were harder to repair, but still, if I had like a trash bike and then a not so trashed bike, I could use the pieces from this bike on the other one if like some pieces were missing from this one. So with two bikes I could make one work, or sometimes I just had an entire one, just replace one or two things and it just worked. So I started collecting those and doing this at home with my dad's tools. And so I learned more and more, and now it's kind of easy. It's just mechanics. Like it's.
Do you sell the bikes?
I used to do this in school when I had a lot of times. I did a lot, and then my dad was just like, hey, what are we gonna do with all those bikes, you know? So I kind of had to get rid of them in a way. So I would just go to school and say, hey, you're a student, you don't have any money, do you want a bike for cheap? And then you don't have to take the bus, so it would be even cheaper. And people were like, yeah, sure. And because they knew me, they knew that the bikes were well repaired or whatever, or at least repaired, or if they weren't, they could come back to me and be like, hey, can you help me with this, you know, like
this? Right.
Yeah, my tire broke or something, and I could help them. So yeah, I used to do this. I don't do it anymore because I have too much work with school. But if I did have time, I would still do it. It's pretty fun.
Well, maybe you'll get back to your part-time bikeist thing.
Yeah.
Or bike mechanic.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool. All right. Well, so is there anything else you want to say about is there a takeaway from this kind of lifestyle and what it's done to you as a human?
I think it's just, you know, keep moving with all this stuff. Like I don't know. I started with 0 waste and I wasn't a vegetarian, and I was like going with my box to the butcher saying like, hey, I want meat. Now I realized that meat wasn't good for the environment, so I'm trying to quit on meat. You know, I'm trying to pile up everything, not everything, but what I can do at least. And I just go along with the flow and don't like struggle.
Don't judge yourself at the same time.
Yeah, don't judge yourself, don't judge others. Do your thing, do what you think is best, and keep going.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Miss Lucile, I'm sure if anybody has any other questions, they'll do you have anywhere anybody can find you? Do you have a thing like
I don't.
People have now.
I'm not even on Facebook. I only have an email address. If you want to send me an email, that's fine. If you have some questions.
Okay, cool. I'll add your email address, and maybe some people will be like, "What?
Really?
Wait, what's that? What's that thing?" So that's cool. I'll put your email address in the notes or whatever. And
sure.
Like if you're okay with that.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
If you want, like I have a one I use for my like work stuff, and one I use for like if like they want to send me promotions.
Okay, I only have one, but whatever.
Okay.
Just put this one in.
Cool.
That's funny.
Okay, well, it was awesome talking to you.
Yeah.
But wait, I'll
Yeah.
talk to you more in a second. Just hold on.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop recording it though.
All right.
And yeah, okay, cool. We'll talk to you soon. All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.